Texas lands their first five-star in the 2024 recruiting class in Duncanville, edge rusher Colin Simmons. Here with Horns 24/7 recruiting analyst Hank South. Hank, huge pickup for the Longhorns. What does this mean for Steve Sarkisian in Texas?
Yeah, it's a massive pickup for Steve Sarkisian in Texas. We've seen Texas build a lot of momentum throughout the course of June and July with official visit season and then obviously commitment season following that. We've seen them build on their defensive line class, their wide receiver class, their running back class. Obviously, they hit on, but we haven't seen them, land one of those. And I don't want to take away from any of the other guys, but those 5-star guys, those big fish guys. Jared Gibson, obviously, is kind of the exception there. He's right on that cusp of 5-star. But Colin Simmons, the number one edge rusher in the country per the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings, number 8 overall player in the country, by himself puts Texas into the top 20 classes in the country per the 24/7 rankings. And I think it's 17 overall right now as it stands. But they were outside the top 20. Now with 16 commitments with Colin Simmons on board, it's massive. It's an in-state win. Obviously, in-state recruiting is the lifeblood of a program. You want to win those big in-state battles. And, we saw a few weeks back, Corian Gibson to Clemson. That was a loss. We're tracking Micah Hudson, Mike Hudson's recruitment, the 5-star receiver from Lake Belton. That's looking like it's trending towards Texas Tech. So, you really want to build some positive momentum in state. Those top classes feature top in-state guys. And so, getting a guy like Colin Simmons, winning that heated SEC recruiting battle with with LSU and even with Miami and a lot of others, he was a highly coveted guy for a lot of programs. So massive, massive win and one that can, really catapult Texas into this 2023 season and help them finish this class strong.
And speaking of the SEC, Texas obviously joining the league in 2024. Steve Sarkisian hasn't been shy about the fact that he wants to load up on the line of scrimmage. They've done a pretty good job of that on the offensive line, but I think you can argue on the D line there's a little bit more to be desired. So how big of a pickup is Simmons, and where do you think this can go for Texas moving forward when it comes to recruiting SEC caliber defensive linemen?
Yeah, it's huge. And that was one of my questions for Steve Sarkisian when we saw him at the coaches convention in Houston a few weeks back was, how are you going about this 2024 class being as it's going to be your first SEC class? Is there any different strategy? Is there anything, footprint wise, guys you're looking for, body types? And he answered, he says, the minute he got to Texas was he recruited guys to beat the Alabamas, to beat the LSUs, to beat the Georgias, to beat the top dogs. And so he said it really didn't change anything. And one thing he noticed is obviously you've got to be big up front. You've got to have speed. You've got to affect the quarterback. And certainly, I think if you look at the makeup of this Texas roster and just, kind of where Texas has been the last few years, there really hasn't been a huge edge rush presence. Getting a guy like Colin Simmons, a guy that's been compared to Will Anderson, who's one of the best, edge rushers we've seen in the last decade, certainly fills that need. And so, it's massive. You're winning this SEC recruiting battle. We've seen Texas really take on these SEC programs to beat out some of these on some of these recruitments this fall. Melvin Hills was an Ole Miss guy. We've seen them go up against programs like Alabama for Aaron Hampton. Several different position groups. We're seeing Texas win out against SEC programs, and obviously, when you're winning out against SEC programs, you're recruiting SEC caliber guys. And so Colin Simmons is 100% that. He's an SEC caliber guy. He'd probably, have he has a spot in really any class in the country. And certainly just massive grab for Texas going forward and, kind of putting them on the map in this 2024 class to really build some momentum.
And speaking of building momentum, you have to think about what kind of domino effect will this commitment have. Obviously, a big five-star name off the board. What I think is interesting about this commitment, you have a crystal ball prediction in for another five-star defensive lineman in Dominic McKinley. Do you think that Simmons jumping onto the boat is maybe a little bit of a nudge for guys like McKinley and maybe some others who are on the fence about Texas on the defensive line to maybe start thinking about Bo Davis and Steve Sarkisian?
Yeah, I think so. Top caliber guys want to play with top caliber guys. I used to cover Alabama. And a lot of the interviews we did with kids was, iron sharpens iron. They want to play with the best. And, when you're getting the best guys, that kind of opens eyes. We've seen domino effects with programs like Georgia. They went on a big recruiting run and got and loaded up on a bunch of guys. Auburn's had a lot of success in the last few weeks recruiting top level guys. And so, yeah, kids take notice. They're on social media. They live on social media. They see these things happening. They get excited. It kind of just, continues to build that momentum and get that ball rolling. So, in terms of Dominic McKinley, a 24/7 Sports 5-star, we've seen, 5-star cornerback Kobe Black in the mix, Ryan Wingo, the 5-star wide receiver from Missouri. There's still a ton of elite tier talent that's considering Texas. A few weeks back, we talked to Steve Wilfong about, 5 things he liked about this class. And he thought, one of them was just the potential of where this class could go. It's kind of hovering in that top 20 range right now. With some of these guys you look at, if they win some of these battles that, they're projected to win in some of them, and they're right there in the mix for a lot of other ones, this could turn into a top 5 class real quick. So certainly a lot of excitement, and the addition of Colin Simmons only adds to that.